Welcome, come one, come all. I'm Darth Zach. I'm here with my partner in crime,
the Space Wizard.
And this is the pilot episode of Rangers of the Old Republic, a Star Wars fan podcast, which we're just going to declare is objectively the best. Now, since this is the inaugural podcast, I'm just going to go ahead and completely out myself here. I have been a very happy Star Wars fan for well over 20 years. Space Wizard, how old were you when you first became a Star Wars fan? Let's get all this crap out of the way immediately.
I think it was kindergarten or first grade, and my mom and dad said, "Hey, get in the car. We're going to go watch a movie at your uncle's house." And it was Return of the Jedi.
You started off with Return of the Jedi?
I started off with Return of the Jedi.
That is both awesome and horrible at the same time.
Then it was A New Hope, and then we were mesmerized by Empire Strikes Back. So I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan.
Well, nonetheless, that still has to be an experience, though. Number one, I'm sure Return of the Jedi probably blew your mind in any case, because it is a spectacular movie.
It did.
And for the entire, the collective spectacularity of the Star Wars trilogy, I think we're just going to go ahead and give George Lucas a pass for the first half hour of Return of the Jedi.
Well, everything tell it in so many other...
No, everything before, up to the Sarlacc pit was a giant WTF moment. Now, in original Return of the Jedi, it was weird, but it was okay. What the F was up with the special edition and the party in Jabba's palace? Do you remember that song that they put into it? I know you know that you remember that song because they also put the song on the soundtrack to Star Wars Battlefront 2. And they would play that song in the Heroes Only mission where it was all the Jedi and the Sith Lords killing each other with lightsabers. But that freaking song in
with the
Jabba's
harmonica
palace,
intro?
The harmonica intro, and then the aliens come out and they're singing their asses off. And then the one guy, this is totally not in the original cut, they put this in special edition and decided this is so awesome, we're going to keep this in the DVD. There's that one alien that looks like the cousin of the freaking honeycomb monster, and he comes out and he starts singing, what the F was that, dude?
All right, I was 15 or 16 years old when they started to stagger the special editions out.
Yeah.
And Return of the Jedi, watching Return of the Jedi special editions was like a WTF moment, because not only did they add, I believe that song is Lepti Neck, if memory serves me correctly, but they also got rid of the Ewok Celebration song.
Oh, that's right.
They
I forgot
also
about the Ewok Celebration song, that little chant thing.
Yeah, they also interspersed the little vignettes of looking at Tatooine when the Empire fell.
Yeah.
And Coruscant.
I don't know if it was in special edition, but it did make it to the 04-05 DVDs where you get the glimpse of Coruscant and Naboo at the end of Return of the Jedi.
They added those into the special edition releases at 04 before, months before.
So the Naboo stuff, that was not in 1997, correct?
No. It was strictly Tatooine, Bespin, and Coruscant.
By the way, to our audience, thank you very much for bearing with us. We are actually recording this pilot episode live on location from Uptown Whittier.
Yes, this is actually the alleyway from Masters of the Universe. We're behind that camera store in Masters of the Universe from 1987, filmed in Uptown Whittier. We are a few blocks away from Whittier High School, where they filmed Back to the Future. The Back to the Future trilogy.
We were actually considering just breaking and entering into the outer ring of security of Skywalker Ranch, but we decided we probably want to get through our pilot episode without getting arrested.
Yeah, without incident first.
Yeah. Or we at least want to have at least 100,000 Star Wars fans behind us before we start doing things to piss off George Lucas.
Yeah. So we had to start then with the lesser science fiction trilogies.
But even so you saw Return of the Jedi first, totally mesmerized you, but then you go back and watch A New Hope, and it's a good movie, but you're like, gee, I wonder how this trilogy's going to end. Well, or you watch Return of the Jedi, and then you say you were mesmerized by The Empire Strikes Back. Having seen Return of the Jedi, what was the WTF moment for you when you saw Leia kissing Luke? Like that's the thing. We
I
got that
think
bomb
I saw
dropped
it
on
at
us.
an early enough age
I
where
have
that
it.
didn't really connect.
My father has it. My sister has
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah.
no, dude. Well, maybe it didn't connect for you at that age. I remember I was hyper aware of it because I remember my mom just trying to generally encourage her kids to both enjoy franchises
Which brings
and
us
have
to a
fun.
very important note
Well,
here.
my mom used to tell me, "All right, Zach, for Halloween, you can be Luke Skywalker, and then your sister can be Princess Leia." Like immediately, my brain is shooting to Leia kissing Luke in The Empire Strikes Back, and I'm like, "Nah,
No,
bro,
no,
nah.
no,
I'm
no
straight
go.
up canceling my
No
my
go.
little sister does not get to participate
do
in
that.
that in
Not gonna
Star
do
Wars
that.
Halloween."
So this brings up a very important topic, and one that we'll probably talk about ad nauseum through different episodes, which is the viewing order for the entire saga.
Which viewing order for
Because
the entire
remember,
saga.
I viewed it out of order.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
You
That's
know,
right. All
like
right.
you have to introduce the canon in the appropriate order so that it flows from one to the next. So that when Vader reveals that he is Luke's father, it's not, I didn't know that in like Return of the Jedi. Because
Yeah.
if you watch Return of the Jedi first, even that reveal is just yanked away from you.
Yeah. That sucks to not have that big reveal in the Empire. Because I was 7 years old when I
Yeah.
saw the trilogy for the first time.
And see,
That's how it was for me. VHS, and it was the brand new. It wasn't the first time that they were on VHS because the original VHS, if I remember correctly, they had the movie poster on the artwork.
the original
This
had
was the 95 re-release where the cuts were still the same original cuts
Yeah.
without the special effects.
without the special edition.
But they were calling it Episode 4 in the opening
They
crawl.
started
That
calling
was
it
the one
Episode
difference.
4.
And it
through
was the
6,
one that one of them had Vader, the other one had the Stormtrooper, and then the
other
last one had Yoda.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where I saw it.
I have that in my at home on my shelf.
And I still remember that big reveal. I am here. First
Yeah.
of all, Luke Skywalker got his hand cut off, which, all right, our audience doesn't know me, but I am missing my right hand from a birth defect, but it is what it is. So being a one-armed kid and then already being into Star Wars from A New Hope, seeing Luke Skywalker get his hand chopped off in Empire Strikes Back, I was like, yes, I'm totally going to be a Jedi.
It was foreseen.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't know. You haven't seen Return of the Jedi yet. You don't know how it's going to end. But you do know that Luke Skywalker is training to be a Jedi. You do know that Obi-Wan is coming on.
Yeah.
You got Darth Vader talking about come with me and the dark side and blah, blah, blah. And you know the movie after this is called Return of the Jedi. Not a whole lot of freaking options on who that Jedi is going to be.
Yeah.
But even still, that was a big reveal. So that's got to suck to not have that big reveal.
But you know that the title of Return of the Jedi raised the ante, up the ante for what was expected for that movie.
Return of the Last Jedi?
Yeah, Return. Because you know who they're talking about. Like it had to be
Episode
Luke.
6, shit that's going to be severely undermined in Episode 8.
Oh, that
Return of
hurts.
the Last
That's a
Jedi.
low blow.
Okay, so the correct view, just object. I like the sequel trilogy. We'll get into our beefs with our fanboy complaints at another time. But to answer your question, what I think is the correct viewing order of the Star Wars saga. Okay, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, then Return of the Jedi. It definitely has to be like a bootleg version. Or at the very least, special edition. I can handle Sebastian Shaw. I'm still having trouble making my peace with Hayden Christensen. Or like, come on, man, like at least age Hayden Christensen so that you don't have Yoda all 900 years old and then Alec Guinness and Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Nah, bro, just leave us with Sebastian Shaw or at least give us an aged Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
It's been what? It's been 18, 19 years? All right, it's been 2 decades since they filmed Episode 2. They can bring back a slightly older Hayden Christensen for a post CGI. They already CGI'd Yoda in Episode 1. Anyway, continuing with
Okay,
after that.
so my thing.
I do believe in the prequel trilogy. I would show Clone Wars to somebody, the movie, but not until after the prequel trilogy is finished, and then go with the sequels. That is my correct order.
What I would say would be A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi. So that way the prequel trilogy is like a flashback to explain the character of Anakin Skywalker and how he arrived on the scene. And of course, So those people who are listening who can't stand Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones, you can just fast forward through those moments with him and Padme.
What
and their love
happened
story.
to actually the photos where Natalie Portman's wearing that what is it, the leather dress? Those
The
are actually
Barbarella
some
dress?
of the, yeah, the Barbarella dress. Those are actually some of the better scenes of episode 2. I actually like the scene with Dex's diner. I like your idea of watching the prequel trilogy as a flashback before Return of the Jedi, but I'm a little bit too much of a traditionalist. I would watch the whole original trilogy, then the whole prequel trilogy, then Clone Wars the movie. I would have to seriously debate on whether I would want to show my kids
The sequel trilogy?
not the sequel trilogy, the Clone Wars episode where Darth Maul comes back.
Oh, okay.
Like, I probably would show them that because you would have to explain, oh, you know what, we totally forgot about Rogue One and stuff like that. Oh, crappity crap. I would definitely put Rogue One and Han Solo before the sequel trilogy.
Okay, so let's do this. This is something that's obviously going to drone on for a lot longer than what we could record for tonight. So I think this is a good point to table that for later. Because you're right, we're skipping over...
You're making me sad.
Well, what? Do you want to talk more, or do you want to go on to our next topic?
Let's go to our next topic. You already made me sad.
All right,
so the next topic is the title's sake for this episode. Jaxxon is canon.
What?
That's what the interwebs say. Jaxxon is canon. As a matter of fact,
for those people who are listening at home, you have to explain this character.
Okay. Some of you who are real hardcore fans who have really done your research into expanded universe or legends will know who Jaxxon is. Jaxxon, if I'm not incorrect, was introduced originally in the comic books.
The Marvel comics.
All right,
Yes.
so before Marvel started doing the Today Star Wars comic books, and then Dark Horse had them in the 90s and 2000s, from 1977 into the early 80s.
Like 1985.
Yeah, Marvel Comics had a Star Wars series. So the first 3 episodes, and I remember that because in middle school, my reading teacher, Miss Peasels, had the giant editions. They were like, I don't know, something like 1.5 feet tall by like 1 foot wide. They were ginormous, but really cool, huge Star Wars comic books to read. So the first 3 issues were A New Hope. And then from there, I don't even think they went into The Empire Strikes Back. They just went into other stories.
Yeah,
so
the first
early
issues
expanded universe
after
they do the New Hope story arc. Somewhere along the way, you meet different friends of Han Solo because, of course, he's got a backstory that's they allude to, but they don't really reveal much in the original trilogy. So, one of his smuggler buddies is this 6 or 7 foot tall, green colored bunny rabbit named Jaxxon, Jaxxon. And I guess, I don't know if he's Corellian or if he's just friends with Han Solo. I don't know where he specifically made his appearance because he's in several. I haven't one of the reprints. It says Legends on top of it, but I have a Marvel reprint of that old series. It's the one that was a blatant, like, how do I describe it? Star Wars was big, but not big enough to really take up Stan Lee's attention.
It was big, but it needed to be fleshed out.
Yeah, it needed to be fleshed out. So what did Stan Lee do, in my opinion? He put a bunch of his other comic book artists that they're good comic book artists, but their focus is making kind of cranking out these bubblegum comic books on a certain formula. And on the cover, it's something like the Mysterious Bounty Hunter or something like that. It's a dude that blatantly looks like a space version of the Punisher. And he even has this like proto, not quite Punisher skull on his uniform, and he is hunting Han Solo because remember, there's bounties on him. And Jaxxon, this 6 foot tall green bunny rabbit, is walking around with a blaster rifle in his arms, talking about, if you got a problem with Han Solo, you got a problem with me. Now, reading those words and just this freaking 6 foot tall bunny rabbit walking around, I'm sorry, I cannot help but have the mental image of Bugs Bunny talking about, nah, you got a problem with Han Solo, you got a problem with me, Doc.
Yeah.
Now, what did you see of Jaxxon that you sent me a photo of the other day in texting?
So let me go a little bit farther into the backstory of Marvel Comics and their relationship.
Yeah, go into the backstory.
With George Lucas. Is that primarily Roy Thomas, who's like a legend at Marvel Comics. Okay, he invented characters like Wolverine, Carol Danvers, also known as Miss Marvel, also Captain Marvel. I'm gonna wait for the plane to fly over.
It's an early prototype of the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
We'll call it the Last Century Falcon.
Gosh, a ton of people. He wrote a lot of Conan the Barbarian stories. He's
Marvel was pretty OG. There was
Yes.
a certain point, like before, there was a certain campiness in the artwork before they picked up Todd McFarlane.
yeah.
But at a certain, like in some of these series, there was a certain level of sophistication.
Yeah.
In the story arcs, the character development.
And so the other thing is, so Roy Thomas was a great artist. He was a good writer. He wrote some of the more cutting edge characters and created a lot of the more cutting edge characters. But as you can see, because Star Wars was a property that belonged to somebody else, and because the movies were still in development, they couldn't necessarily have a lot of these cutting edge characters that you would have who would go up against Wolverine.
Yeah, for
So-
example, like you could not have Boba Fett popping up in the comic book series because they have no idea.
They have no idea who Boba Fett is.
Yeah, or what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, or what's even going to happen in the rest of Empire Strikes Back.
And as
So-
a matter of fact, back then, George Lucas didn't really know. He knew what happened to the Skywalkers, but
Yeah.
Boba Fett, Han Solo, the Rebel Alliance, even the story arc for Palpatine,
Yeah.
even up to like the special editions, and they're getting ready to make Episode 1, and then like they did the updated novelizations for the special edition. The couple-page prologue that gives you what the story arc for the prequel trilogy is going to be is radically different from what we actually see on screen
Yeah.
a decade later.
So basically, because they're characters that are on property from somebody else, they kind of came up with a bunch of canned ham kind of stories. So
yeah,
these,
so it was like they took Luke's, because they had the licensing to Star Wars, so they took some Star Wars characters and put them in what Marvel thought a sci-fi comic book
Yes.
would look like. So it looks very Flash Gordon-y.
very Flash Gordon-y, very
Or like the Punisher in space,
the
but less
Punisher
violence.
space kind of stuff. But
Much
the,
less violence.
But the Punisher wasn't as cutting edge as he was in the 80s or 90s yet. He was still very much just a darker cartoon
Yeah.
character. And so they had a lot of freedom to do these kind of what I would call stock comic book adventures with the Star Wars characters. So like they tried to give Darth Vader a backstory with Obi-Wan Kenobi during these Marvel years. And when you look at the story, it's Darth Vader in his armor that you see him in A New Hope.
Yeah.
And he's also fighting along with Anakin Skywalker.
So you see him in his armor fighting with the Jedi, like on their side.
Yeah, they're all together in this little happy group. So
Yeah, that is Legends
as you can
as
see,
Fudge.
they're cutting into these stories that are quasi backstory, but they're not supposed to be going that far in depth
Yeah.
into the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Marvel stories, because they have stories of him before he dies in A New Hope, he looks like Alec Guinness just in like a black bodysuit with white boots.
Yeah.
You know, like literally like a Punisher bodysuit without the skull.
So he looks like Alec Guinness in Bridge on the River Kwai, but in a black bodysuit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's okay. Oh, so you asked about the story that I sent
Enter
you.
Jaxxon.
Enter Jaxxon. So I watched The Phantom Menace when I was 18 years old. We couldn't go to our local movie theater. We had to go to the one in the next town over, which was an AMC. And I watched, to my horror, at 18 years old, Jar Jar Binks on stage for the first time. And I literally thought, what is this? I felt betrayed by George Lucas. Well, to find out that justice actually exists in the universe, George Lucas loathes the character of Jaxxon, who is every bit as cartoon craptacular,
It's green Bugs Bunny, dude.
green Bugs Bunny, as Jar Jar Binks. So this is from Screen Rant, and it just basically goes off on a tangent about how George Lucas hated this character and how he didn't have any creative control. Gee, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Wonder where I've heard the story before.
Yeah, sounds very, very familiar to the past decade. I basically told my friend over here that George Lucas got Jar Jar by Jaxxon.
Okay, so how is Jaxxon actually canon? Where did Lucas Story Group and whoever the hell they made a licensing agreement with to make that buck, how did they squeeze him in there?
Well, remember, they have another licensing agreement with Marvel because they're all owned by Disney, and something that Marvel has done.
I thought we had a problem.
There are no problems here. Everybody loves our stuff.
It's that stupid bear. So where did they squeeze him in?
So, okay, so this goes to all the creatives out there. Don't sell your stuff.
Yeah.
Or
man.
if you sell your stuff, you need to be a part of the agreement. Like, you need to be there directing people on what they do with your stuff. Okay? So, like, you need to be even if you want to retire and build an effigy to yourself, you know, like George Lucas did with his museum.
If you don't want that effigy to include a 7-foot-tall life-size statue of Jaxxon,
yes,
you should probably be involved in the process.
You need to make sure that you are a part of the creative process, or don't sell your stuff.
Okay, now they've got an action figure of him, right?
Hold on. Let me get there.
Okay.
I'm almost there. So, again, this goes back to licensing agreements. Marvel has what they called the Star Wars Adventures, which is basically a license agreement with IDW Publishing. So they do all of these little corny cartoon stories. Gee, sound familiar? Which is where, and this is all canon.
It is canon.
This is all canon. They don't have to like it, but they're gonna pay. Don't think you won't pay. So Jaxxon is now canon because somebody at IDW thought it would be cute to make a story with Jaxxon.
Jeez.
And now there's a bloody action figure.
Yeah, and he looks. What are they? It was like they took the original Jaxxon and put him on just a little bit of methamphetamines. Like this looks like the Hitler getting ready to space invade Stalingrad cracked out version of Jaxxon.
Yes, I was thinking something similar. This is the Jaxxon that you meet in Venice Beach, peddling smack or heroin.
This is the Jaxxon that you meet on Fremont Street in Las Vegas on a Saturday night. Definitely. So they've got this IDW story. I've got to wonder where else they're going to find a place to put him in there. But it's just knowing the way they do that stuff.
Okay, here's my deal. I'm a Star Wars fan. I've been a Star Wars fan. I lived through Jar Jar Binks. Okay, I hated every second of it, but I lived through Jar Jar Binks. I lived through the sequel trilogy. I don't give up on Star Wars. However, if Jaxxon gets his own Disney Plus show, I will give up.
I don't see Disney Plus giving Jaxxon his own show. I do see them trying to sneak a CGI Jaxxon in a supporting role on an episode of Star Wars Rebels or something like that. I can see that quackery happening under our noses, because when they choose to make things from the expanded universe into canon, they usually do it with very little fanfare. For example, before the ghost of Darth Bane actually appeared in the Clone Wars, the seismic shift that was a red flag inside the Star Wars community was on Wikipedia. All of a sudden, the Darth Bane page says canon. instead of Legends.
Yeah.
So we knew, oh crap, Darth Bane's real. He's real.
Well, the same thing happened with Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Oh hell yeah, and I'm totally okay with that. I was mad that they brought him in through Rebels, but I am absolutely delighted that Timothy Zahn was able to start writing a new series. I'm one of those people. Many people share this opinion. Heir to the Empire and the whole original Thrawn trilogy is just objectively one of the best works of Star Wars fiction. Period. I have not read the Last Command books. I did read Outbound Flight. That was also really good. Mithran Urodo is such a cool freaking character. I absolutely love having him in the universe. I don't think the new series is as exciting as the original Thrawn trilogy. I think they could have done a lot better things with Thrawn than, I'm here at the Academy, and I'm very smart, and everyone hates me. I just don't know why. And that was like mostly the story arc of the first Thrawn novel. I like Thrawn alliances. I like the way they've got Thrawn basically blatantly trolling Vader the whole way. You know, I used to work with this guy named Anakin Skywalker. He was such a great guy. You probably would have gotten along. I wonder what happened to him. I hear he got burned like a little bitch. So I love the character Thrawn. Now, I'm going to share with you the other side of the Mandela effect, because before it was the Berenstain Bears, back when the rest of the world called it the Berenstain Bears, the alternate universe that I remember in which I lived, most people got taken by the blitzy, flashy PR campaign, and just they got wowed by the visual effects that George Lucas put in episode 1. So I remember people waiting in line to see episode 1 like for the third, the fourth time.
Yeah.
I remember it taking multiple attempts to be able to see it in the theater, just because my parents liked Star Wars, but they were not going to wait 4 hours in line for their 10-year-old son to see it, with a bunch of rowdy people from the high school and the college and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I remember people did like episode 1 for a good while, and it wasn't until a little bit after episode 2 came out when people were like, oh yeah, episode 1 just sucks. Because I remember also not only waiting in line to see it in the movie theaters, I remember pre-ordering the VHS at Hollywood Video, and a lot of people had pre-ordered it. I remember my friends coming to school, we were in middle school at the time, and be like, I watched the episode 1 VHS last night, oh it was so good, oh my god, Darth Maul, oh my god. And then somewhere along the line, everybody just collectively decided that episode 1 totally sucks, which I always thought was a really harsh. It has its problems. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think all of the Star Wars movies are good movies, if not at the very least movies that are a lot of fun. So I actually thought that the episode, or the hate in general that the prequel trilogy got, I thought that was really unfair. Constructive criticism or artistic criticism, that's going to happen in the world. Especially when people are as passionate as Star Wars about we are. But this whole thing about episode 1 was absolutely horrible, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, in hindsight, Jar Jar Binks is a really annoying character. I also remember, like, everybody under the age of 13 did not give a rat's ass about how, I guess they didn't pick up on that. Because little kids are annoying, you know? So I was an annoying little kid when episode 1 was out in theaters. I was 10 years old. And back then also, I thought Jake Lloyd was the shit. I wanted to be Jake Lloyd.
Well, here's what I will say positively about episode 1. It's got the best lightsaber duel in the entire
that Darth Maul lightsaber
trilogy
duel
of trilogies. Okay,
pretty bitchin'.
Like I even Anakin and Obi-Wan in episode 3, to me, does not surpass the double-bladed lightsaber.
Oh no, Darth Maul with double-bladed lightsaber. Yeah, that was absolutely
okay.
That was spectacular.
I will give somebody money if they can tell me otherwise with a straight face.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the live action movies.
Duel, yeah.
I'm not talking about the animated series either. Although there are some pretty good animated series lightsaber duels, they all include Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Okay?
That is true. I remember I was so into the Darth Maul character. For example, Darth Maul was not only an outstanding character to have in episode 1. Totally sucks that they killed him off that fast. I like Christopher Lee. I also think the prequel trilogy would have been a lot cooler if they had just kept Darth Maul into the beginning of episode 3.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, if they had kept Darth Maul, then they could have had a personality ego pissing contest between Darth Maul and General Grievous.
Yeah.
Things like that. Whereas there is no sense of competition or trying to get Palpatine's favor between Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, there you go. And then Grievous, there's nothing like that. You see these in all kinds of regimes, despotic regimes. You've got different generals or leaders of different factions. Like, they're all at each other's throat.
And they're all played against each other, too.
Yeah, so that would have worked with Darth Maul and General Grievous.
Yeah.
With Christopher Lee and General Grievous, I feel like that just wouldn't even have been possible.
No.
So I personally wish that they'd kept Darth Maul. Though the other thing is, having that spectacularly amazing lightsaber duel in Episode 1, they kind of blew their wad for the rest of the prequel trilogy, because while Episode 3 was great, I think Episode 3 was a very strong movie. Freaking loved the Battle of Kashyyyk scene. As you said, that lightsaber duel was not as cool as Episode 1.
And even you could tell that they tried to outmatch the first duel.
Yeah.
And you could tell that they did that because there's so many moving parts to the Episode 3 lightsaber duel.
Yeah.
But to me, it doesn't top Episode 1. Like,
No.
there's just too much stuff going on in that first lightsaber duel. And the second Attack of the Clones, like, come on, don't even mention that. Like, George Lucas described it as his own poem. I'm like, barf, George, come on.
The 42 seconds of lightsaber battle between Dooku and Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and then Dooku and Anakin. And you could tell that they were trying to up the ante from the first film, but they just didn't match it.
Yeah. Although having a movie with Jango Fett was really freaking cool.
Yeah.
We needed a Mandalorian bounty hunter. They could have had less scenes with child Boba Fett. Nothing against Daniel Logan. Daniel Logan's never done anything to piss me off in my life. We want to see really cool Star Wars villains. We don't want to see 10-year-old Boba Fett. Get him, Dad.
Yeah. And see, the other thing that I liked about Attack of the Clones, objectively about Jango Fett, is that we saw all the pieces of the Mandalorian armor getting used in that one movie by the one character.
Yeah.
He used his jetpack. He used his gauntlets, his rockets. He used everything.
Yeah, he did. He was a cool character. And we got to see the Slave One.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I love the South Park episodes where Mickey comes flying in the Slave 2. Okay, so going back to objectively clarify what the correct viewing order is for me, I would do the original trilogy in order, then the prequel trilogy, then Rogue One, Han Solo. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting? Clone Wars, Clone Wars. Because with that one, there are technically 12 now with the Clone Wars movie. Hey, it got an MPAA rating. It was in theaters. It is a movie, even though we all know it was a giant pilot.
Well, then you have to have the sequel trilogy at some point.
Yeah, then the sequel trilogy last.
The Ewok movies.
I forgot about the Ewok movies, but
They're
I
going to
remember
be on
seeing
Disney
those.
Plus.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so as a kid growing up in the 80s, there was no Star Wars.
There was no more Star Wars.
No more Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, you just had to deal with it. Like, you cried bitter tears by yourself.
And you just had to deal.
You just had to deal with it. Okay? So, they announced these movies being made. It was off-brand Star Wars.
Yeah.
But if you love the Ewoks, it got your
then
little
those
giggles
movies
in.
were the tits, yeah.
Yes, okay? Like, so
being a kid and the Ewoks were cool because they defeated the Empire, I'll watch this movie about the Ewoks save this little girl.
So the Ewok movies would get passed around from house to house on Kodak video. I'm dating myself here, okay? With the little yellow trim.
Mm-hmm. Well, just like the holiday special for many years was a bootleg VHS.
Yeah.
And I remember you could go to comic book and sci-fi conventions.
You could find
they had one a
bootleg.
couple of times a year. There's a great one they had a couple of times a year at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. And that was a place where not only there was all these dudes selling comic books, and then you had the action figure vendors and the collectibles, people selling Spawn. And then they had Penthouse Pets from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Signing photos of them. themselves, all that type of thing, like really cool comic conventions. But one of the things that they would always have, there was always be somebody selling bootleg videos, but it was never like bootlegs of Hollywood movies. It was bootlegs of like the Star Wars Holiday Special and like Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah. It was
like
all
animated,
stuff. It was all
off-brand
stuff that
superhero
nobody
movies.
wanted to touch with the 10-foot.
Yeah, I remember what else did they have? Like Dragon Ball Z, because back then there was only about the first half of it had been dubbed in English, so they had the rest of it subtitled in English, uncut in Japanese. Like that was cool, being able to go there and buy Dragon Ball Z movies on VHS and widescreen, knowing that they weren't even going to be here in the U.S. for another 2 or 3 years. So that's where I would see copies of the holiday special in VHS. Then they started doing DVD-Rs, and I don't even know what they would have today.
So I'm totally excited about the Ewok movies coming on Disney Plus. I'm ready for that. Mainly because my DVD copy somehow disappeared. So
I think I'll hold off on that one until I've got kids. I don't particularly need to be watching the Ewok movies for my own benefit. Although
I come from a different age, Zach.
I guess you do come from a different age. Although I'm always down to rewatch the 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, because not only is that great Star Wars, but that's just objectively the most westerny Western in the history of Westerns. Alrighty, so we have introduced ourselves. We have talked about how we individually became Star Wars fans originally. We talked about how Jaxxon is canon, and we talked about the correct viewing order for the Star Wars saga.
Which will probably be up for debate forever.
Oh, it will absolutely be up for debate forever. I have made my peace with the fact that my Star Wars opinions are objectively correct, and the world is out of sync, but just like you only could have 2 Sith and then 2 Jedi in order to have balance with the Force, just like this, only one person can be right, and then everybody else has to be wrong. But that's okay, because I've made my peace with that. You guys don't have to share my opinions. Space Wizard and I, Darth Zach, are going to be here every week discussing Star Wars and saying things that you're thinking, but you've been too afraid to say because you don't want to get dogpiled at wherever the next Star Wars celebration is.
Yeah, you don't want to get ratioed on YouTube.
Oh, no, you definitely don't want to get ratioed on YouTube. Although that does remind me, I'll go into detail another time, but the last Star Wars celebration that they had in Anaheim, I was working as a contractor at that time, and in 2015, I was working with different special operations troops, so Green Berets, Navy SEALs. Let's just say my ego was like through the freaking ceiling at that particular age, but because I was going to be cool at Celebration, I was going to dress myself up like a cool, like Special Forces type Republic soldier. So I got a Republic, like a Rebel Alliance patch that I glued onto some BDU woodland camouflage that I put on. And then I had a generic green combat helmet, which was my old helmet as a contractor. And then in Galactic Basic, I wrote the F word, F the Emperor. And then I wonder if anybody at the Star Wars convention is going to know what I'm saying. And I totally forget about it. It's almost at the end of the day. It's like 8 o'clock p.m. The last people are kind of shuffling out the convention center. A bunch of people are hanging out in front. There's a taco truck, and there's a tap on my shoulder. And this 14-year-old boy with his mom and his little sister, and he's wearing clone trooper armor, he's tapping me on the shoulder and says, "I know what your helmet says." And I said, "No way, kid. You read Galactic Basic?" And he's like, "Yeah, and I know what it says." And I was like, "Well, good for you, buddy. I'm glad. Yeah, you made my day. Somebody did appreciate it." Yeah, other thing I just want to mention before we wrap up the episode. One of the things, I'm just going to say it, I am a red-blooded male. I love seeing all the women running around in the Princess Leia bikinis. Asterisk. I love seeing all the women run around in the Princess Leia bikini who have business wearing that outfit. For every gal that looks spectacular in the Leia bikini, there's like 3 or 4 who should not have been wearing it, and I have nightmares from that to this day. All right, so anything else you wanna add to that in closing, Mr. Space Wizard?
I can't think of anything at the time.
All right, well then, until next time, may the Force be with you.